Hello and welcome. Today I want to share a command console that I made that it's very helpful if you're testing your project build and you need to test values or execute some commands. That's the purpose of this command console. And I'll show you how to set up this package and a couple things that you may need to change depending on your Unity version. Alright, so the first thing that you need to make sure is that you have the new input system package installed and active in your project. This console use the new input system to work, and after you import this package, there's gonna be the assembly definition for these scripts, the sprites, and assembly scene, some prefabs. This prefix here is for prefab, and I will explain these other scripts later. This tree here, but there's a tree, is a data structure that I imported here from this GitHub page. It's a very useful tree implementation, and I'll put the link on the description. It's used to retrieve the command suggestions. Uh, Once you start typing on the command panel. Alright, so let's close this and import. I'm using the Ghost to Goblins project as a demonstration. Alright, so it imported, and if you open the example scene right here, you'll be asked to import the text mesh pro if you're not using it already. So I'll import here. Alright, so if you hit play here and hit the open console input, you can see that nothing happens. I can't see the console here, and if you open the prefab, you can see that all the scripts is missing. It could not be loaded. The reason why that happens is because you need to add a script define symbol here. If you open any script like start here, you can see that they're all inside this if processor statement using dev console. So this is useful if you want to release a debug build with the defined symbol, and once you ship the final build, you can just come here and remove, and the console will stop working and will not be included on build. But if you want to test and implement, you need to add here dev console and apply. So it will recompile your scripts. And you can see that I got an error here that the command input actions are missing. This is one thing that you also need to set up. You need to generate this sharp class for the input. All you need to do is just select the folder that you want to um, place your file and save and apply to generate. Now it will recompile, and and here comes the problem if you're using a different version or older versions of Unity. You need to make some changes on the API of object and input and event system for UI. So here, there's no find object by type. There's only of type, so you can just change this. I will come back later here explaining what this does and uh, why you need this, but for now let's just fix these errors. And here on the mouse position, instead of value, you need to put read value. Again, this really depends on the Unity version that you're using. So I created this project on I guess on the 2023 version of Unity, and now I imported to a 2021. That's why I need to make these changes. But now, as you can see, successfully compiled commands. So if I hit play and press the open command, you can see that the console is here. And now I can type this example script. It's right here. I will show what it does first. Well, first we got the context just to update this text right here. Next, we got just a private int with the current amount of coins. You can think about this like your coins in your upgrade system or something like that in your game. And the default context just to do some interpolation string here. But here's the command. And here is another two important things that you need to do if you're implementing custom commands, sorry. Well, the first one is all your commands needs to be inside this if preprocessor using the dev console symbol again. The reason why you need to make this, it's because again, if you're shipping your final build, you're gonna get compilation errors here saying that this does not exist if you put in outside this if. I'll demonstrate like this. You can see that there is no error here. It's because the symbol it's defined on the project. But let's say that I want to ship the final build. I will remove this, hit apply. It will recompile the scripts. And now I get compilation error saying that there's no command attribute here. The same thing for the using statement. If you're using the dev console, you need to put inside the dev console preprocessor if statement. So I will add can here. And if this is also useful because it will strip the code from the build, so it will reduce your file size as well. So always make sure to whenever you use this dev console, you put inside the preprocessor. Alright, it will recompile again. And now let's wait. Alright, I guess I type it wrong or not. No, it's good. Just a Unity bug. Alright, I will open Visual Studio again. 1 second. Yeah, I guess it was the analysis that was slow. But all right, here I got the commands, and another convention that you need to use when creating new commands is to always keep lowercase and use this underscore to separate uh, the names here, because the, the panel, it's not it is case sensitive, and you need to make sure that to facilitate the search as well. Of course, you can change that, but I do recommend to keep the the name is like this. All right, so this is case sensitive, and if I type the to give player coins, it will require a coin amount, an integer here, and destroy player coin text does not require parameter, so I don't need to pass any input there. So I'll show how it's currently working. Now I will type the commands, open the console, and if I type G this, it will return the suggestions that uh, it's similar to the current input text inside the input field. So I got the give player coins, and inside the braces here, I got the Angular braces. I got the type, the parameter type that I need to put here to execute this command. So I can just give player add. You can also just click here and type the the input, and it will read. It will parse actually the integer that you passed here, and it will execute this command. It will add to the coin amount and update the text. And you can see that this is private. It's inside the class. It's an instance method execution. Of course, you can also make this static for a static class or object as well. But it works both ways. So I can just type again. I can also just hit here to copy the whole text and paste here, and it will execute as well. And if I type anything here, you can see that it just gives a no command message. And now if I type destroy player coin text and submit the command, you can see that it was destroyed like this. And the canvas is it's a don't destroy unload object, right? So yeah, that's how it works. You just type the commands here, uh, and uh, and execute. Of course, if you didn't find an object to execute the command, it will do nothing. And as well for destroy. Uh, but one thing that you need to make sure is you can see that the text was destroyed, but the script is still here on the canvas. So uh, if I type destroy player point text here, uh, you will see that it will cause an error saying that it was destroyed. So I can't just destroy an empty object. Uh, so you gotta be careful on commands to avoid these errors, because it will execute if it finds the object. This script was inside the coin text. You can see that this problem would not happen. So see here, if I hit play, and destroy the text, that I try to destroy again, you can see that nothing happens because it couldn't find uh, the object to execute the command, so it just did nothing. So I'll just demonstrate the next features inside this panel before moving to the implementation. So as you can see right here, I got a button saying clear logs, and if I click, it just remove the message side like this. Remove. I can also resize horizontally, vertically, and diagonal like this. I can also move around. And if you resize like this and try to resize again, it will adjust the window inside the canvas size like this to avoid going off screen. All right. Okay. Uh, that's basically how it's currently working, and you can implement that in your project to and use this window to execute the commands. All the scripts is inside the plugins folder inside the command console inside and using this assembly definition right here. It only references the input system and the text mesh pro. And here I got the example, the mouse sprites for the window resize. I got the prefabs for the command text that is also uh, input field so that you can select the text and copy as well. And I got the console panel prefab. I got the suggestions drop down, scroll view, command input, header that you can drag and move the panel, and the borders. Alright, so how does the command panel knows about the methods? Uh, it's all inside this type commands container. You can see that I got the type name, and inside this type, I got the instance method names and the static method names. Uh, got also the compile command on the main reload. That means that every time you change one script and the units recompile your code, it will automatically recompile these commands. And you can, of course, you can also do manually here. So let's open this up. All right. So inside this class, you can see that it's inside the preprocessor for the dev console, and I got some using for ENC editor, and you can see that reflection is inside the editor in this class. So this is internal, so outside the assembly definition, you don't need to know about this class. Only the scripts that is inside the dev console assembly. And here in the editor is where we gather all the methods inside all the types. To speed up uh, the compilation process, created this list of the simplest names. That's just the default ones inside Unity, like system, Unity, com dot, softy, cinema machine. so that if it so if I once I start looping inside the assemblies, if the assembly is not allowed, I just continue so I don't need to loop through all the type inside the assemblies. That speed up a lot the completion process. I tried without this check and it was very slow to compile the script. So this really helps. Of course, you can add here or remove depending on your needs. But of course, classes inside the Unity namespace won't be able to use the console command because you don't have access to them to change. So that's why you don't need to check if the methods inside uh, that type has the attribute defined because you don't have access, so you can't add manually there. So after skipping these assemblies, we check the initialize on load to if we can compile the commands. And if we can, we just look through all the assemblies and each type in this assembly and get all the commands for a static instance. And I just check if the attribute is defined, the command attribute is defined inside the method. And if it is, I just add to the list. And this list right here, you can see that it's not inside the editor. So for the build, the only thing that goes inside this class, inside the ScriptableObject, is this list right here. All these other things are stripped from the code of the build. Also this ones. And this list is for type commands. The only thing that this class have is the string for the type name, the instance method names, and static method names. The reason why it's string and not the method itself, the method info, it's because you can't serialize method info inside a class here and hold to build. It will lose its reference, at least when I try it. Alright, so next we need to go to the command manager where we initialize the commands. So let's start by this class. It's also internal because other assemblies don't need to know about this class. It's also inside the preprocessor. All these classes inside this command console assembly is inside the preprocessor. Um, uh, but the command attribute it's not. It's public, and but also have the preprocessor. All right. So right here, I just got the hash set for the methods hash set because if I add a duplicate method name, uh, I mean, this won't happen because methods can't have uh, duplicated name. Um, I mean, it actually can because if you create in another class, you may have two different methods here. But to avoid adding multiple strings, the same method, you just add one. All right. So after that, we access we create the console instance before the scene load. Before the first game scene load, we create this object instantiate and set to don't destroy so that you can only have one console because it's only loaded one time, and it will be alive. The object will be working during the game, during all the game, during all scenes. Even if you're transitioning scenes, it will be there so that you can use whenever you want. And here I access the input manager for the console and subscribe to the toggle enable event and just set to active or inactive. This class just holds input actions to the script, to the Unity input action, and that you can use. It's also initialized the same way. Just create the instance, enable, and get the input actions. All right. So to execute the command, we just access this dictionary that it's filled with all the commands. And if there's no command that you type it here, just log the warning that I showed on the example. And here is where the command manager initialize the commands. So before, actually after the assembly is loaded, we look through all the commands, the type commands inside the list that we have in the type commands container. And we get the type name and get the type using the type name, and look through the methods and classes to get the method like this. We get our command methods using the type method names, get the non-public, public. Your commands can be public or private, but it will also add to the list. All right, so we get using instance and static. Um, After that, we initialize the method commands. Uh, Here we actually strip the pattern using regex like this to that, like the ints that you saw on the example. We actually strip from the command line and just leave the text as the method name without any uh, parameter. And we add the command lines, we create the command definition using the method type and the method. The method type, it's just an enum saying that if it's instance method or static method. And we add the command's definition, and these command lines are used to on the console panel to show the suggestions. All right, so I got the current part type name. You can see that if it's int, we return int, bool, float, string, else string empty, just to. All right, and I'll now show the panel controller. These other scripts right here are basically for dragging, resizer, uh, screen fit adjuster. I guess I won't be showing how they work because it's actually pretty simple. Just resizing. The main ones are the panel, the command manager, and the type commands container. So I guess I'll be showing these three, and I'll also show how to implement your custom commands outside the assembly. So let's start the console panel. Internal class. I got the input fields, text, and prefab reference here. I got some colors to debug the logs. These invisible commands I will explain later, and these command suggestions, as the name say, it's the commands that appear below the input field, showing the suggestions. It's the tree of string, and this waiting for ender frame, it's just cache it here because it's kind of weird to work uh, with the event system selection, but I'll explain why later. But it's right here as well. This command split line index is just to split the method name and the parameter. And here's the parameter pattern using the braces. The next suggestion section text is just these three dots. All right, so first we add the listeners for the input, events, and the suggestions to unselect and submit command. On command input value change it, and we also initialize the command suggestions, accessing the command lines inside the command manager and adding to the command suggestions. And we also use the application log message receive it, so that when Unity logs a message, you can also visualize the log inside the panel. If I go to this method, you can see that first check if it's an exception, then we just throw the error using the condition and structures. And here, if debug build, just split and trim the the message, just to show inside the text prefab the class that logged that message and the message, right? You don't need to know like where the namespace or something like that. You just need to know about the class and the message, right? And it just spawn as well using the caller from this type, log type. If I access this method, you just check if it's log, warning, or error exception to return the caller to the text. And else, if it's just a normal log, we just spawn the text. And here, if I select the suggestion that appeared, I first check if it's the next section and it contains next commands to be checked. Then I update the drop-down suggestions. Else, if there's no other suggestions and I click, I can't do nothing. I think this isn't actually necessary, and also this condition, because it only appears uh, if have more suggestions. So I don't think this is really necessary at all, but I will check that later before uploading to GitHub. But yeah, if I select the suggestions, I just replace the input parameter that I'm gonna brace it like this, just the method name. And I also replace any empty spaces with no string. And I update the command input field to the select suggestion text. Uh, I'll talk about this later, this coroutine. So first, go to submit. After submitting the command, we first split using the space char, the command name, and the command parameter, the method name and the method parameter, so that we can get the command parameter using parse and the string input that was the split. And After that, we just set the text, the input field text to a string empty, and we just spawn the another text using the text that was um, uh, that we actually get from the command input that was submitted, and then we execute the command using the command. And here's the spawn text on prefab spawn text prefab on console method. We just instantiate a new object using the command text parent, inside the text and the color. And here we check if the value changed inside. If you're typing and the value is changing, just updating suggestions like this. This is just to check if you removed all the chars inside the input field. So here's the drop-down suggestions method. It's basically uh, getting the suggestions, moving to the invisible commands, so the next section can be loaded if you click the next suggestion section text option, the three dots. And the reason why there's these coroutines here and also this weird string empty, it's because this value changed method, uh, this won't be updated if you select the current value inside the dropdown. So if you select the value 0 and try to select again, this method will not be called because it's only when it's changed. That's why I add this string empty here, so that the first value is always empty and you cannot click because the panel, uh, the UI suggestion for this empty string is behind the input field, so you can't click, and so it will not replace your input. But that's why we need to add this string empty so that we can be able to select another suggestions. Um, Here's the check for the invisible commands. You can add here the max command suggestions count so that you can only show 2 or 3 suggestions. And just add the options to the dropdown, and then we start the coroutine to showing the suggestion. Well, the reason why this is a coroutine like this, I don't really like the way that this works, but for some reason, after adding the options, you need to wait a frame before showing and actually work the drop down. That's why I add this yield return end for end of frame here. And the same thing for the focus command input field. I need to wait one frame before selecting the text, because for some reason this kind of selects, and if I directly call here, it won't work, at least when I try it. So that's why I came to this solution to use coroutines and waiting for one frame before executing the event system action of selecting UI objects. And here's the method to get the color, the parameter we parse, and on destroy. If of course this won't be destroyed, but if you accidentally destroy this object, it will also unsubscribe from the log message received event. That's basically it for the console panel controller class. Alright, so one thing that I forgot to mention is the console panel and the types commands container script table. It's inside the resources folder, so that way we can load from the static class. So they're inside this path of the dev console folder and the object name. prefab for the canvas and for the type commands. So if you change the path or change the path here or inside the assets folder, make sure to update so that it can be loaded. Else you're gonna get no reference. Alright, so now we got the CommandMethodDefinition class that holds the command method and the command method type. And these two other ones are just for checking. So I'll explain what this class is doing. So as you can see, it's not a static, it's not a mono behavior. It's just a class that the command manager used to call the invoke method. But well, in the constructor, we get the command method, method info, the method type, and we also initialize the string using the method name. Failed to execute the command, the command method name, the invocation parameters was incorrect. So let's say that you pass a string for a method that required an integer, you're gonna get this message. And here is just to get the parameter. Uh, Here we got the invoke method and an object parameter that by default is setting to null, so it's not required to invoke. And here we got the object parameter array that we create using the invocation parameter of the method inside this parameter. The reason why it's a parameter is because you can't evoke using reflection, using a single object as a parameter. You need to pass an array. And this class is using reflection for invocation of these methods. So there's a little bit of overhead using reflection because we create some objects like method infos to execute the code. And Yin says that it kind of have a little bit of overhead if you create multiple objects at runtime. That's where I try to minimize, but I'll explain that another time. Let's continue. Uh, uh, Now we just check for the parameter length and the type to check if the invocation can be executed. So if you can, we just check if it's static. If it is, we just invoke the method without any object reference because it don't need any reference because it's static. Else we get the target objects using find objects of type. This is actually changed because it should be find by, but in this Unity version, there's only the of type. And this will return all objects inside the hierarchy of Unity. And this should also include inactive. I don't know why I didn't add this here, but yeah, now it's including the inactive objects. So yeah, it will get all the objects inside the Unity hierarchy in this using this type, the command method type, and call the command method on each one of them using the object as a object instance and the parameter that we get here. And the parameter just check if it's null, then return a new array of 0, else new array of one element of the parameter, so that we can evoke using this method. All right. So that's basically it for this class, command method definition. This it's one class by method, so if you have 100 methods, you will have 100 class of this command method definition. So yeah, Now I'll show how to create a custom uh, input for your game comments. So let's go here on the Goshen Goblins scene. It's right here. There's some time that I don't make any updates here. I need to continue this series. I guess the next episodes will be I'll be recording soon. But let's implement here. So let's go to the player state machine. Not the base, actually the actual implementation. All right, and let's create commands here. First, I will create the user here. Command is equals to the game dev console command attribute. There's some classes here that should be internal. Let's create this as internal. This class, as I'm here, and I also forgot to add the preprocessor. This class right here is just for dealing with the Unity UI, because if you're selecting the create suggestion and go back to the input field, it will not consider your input because it will keep the suggestion as selected. That's why I use this on pointing enter to select the command input field. Alright, so I put inside the preprocessor and mark it as internal, so I can come back here to the state machine and also make this internal. Now there's only the input actions, but this class it's generated by Unity, so I don't really recommend. Of course, you can change this if you want, but if you find any problems, just regenerate this. So there will be only, so the only thing that you can use from this namespace is the command attribute. All right, so let's put this inside the if processor, if dev console, right? And now let's create the commands. I will create two simple commands here. The first one will be command private void disable state player state machine, and the other one will be the inverse enable. And here it will be this dot enable is equals to false, and this dot enable is equals to true. All right, so let's recompile this. And now you can see that it automatically compiled the events. But if you don't have this, check it. You need to manually compile your commands. And you can see that there's also the command UI. But we don't need that for now. So here's the state machine, disable and enable. Let's hit play. Alright, so I had to make a modification here on the initialize commands method because if you try to get type of a type that is in another assembly, you would get an error trying to load because the command console is inside its own assembly and the state machine class is the assembly C#, and it caused me an error that it could not be loaded. So I just added inside the type commands another field using the assembly name that this type is located, and I initialize it here using the assembly.fullName once we loop through them in the editor. And the way that I'm loading now is using a dictionary of loaded assemblies to avoid loading the same assembly over and over again. I just call this method, check if already is loaded the assembly. If it is, we just get the type using the assembly get type as normal type name, and just to throw an error if fails, and also to ignore case. Else, if it's the first time loading, we first load the assembly using the assembly name, the type command, add to the dictionary, to the loaded assemblies dictionary, and then we load again using the assembly get type. And this is a local dictionary, so it will be collected once this method finishes. But of course, loading objects reflection, it can cause some overhead. Alright, so here's the implementation of the methods. I also forgot to add here the if preprocessor, the console. Now I can go back here to the Unity and remember to add the event system if you don't have, and the new input module. Now we can hit play, and you can see here that it's loaded the assembly name and the type name. Of course, you don't need to serialize this in Ester. I just add the attribute to help visualize, but don't change this because it will cause error if you change. Because of course it will not find the instead type name here. But now if we type the command, let me resize this here. You can see that it's running as it should be. But if I type disable state machine, you can see that now I can't move, I can jump because it's disabled. It's not updating the state machine anymore because it called this method right here. Enable is equals to false. This instance state machine. And to enable again, I just need to type this method. So I can close this, enable player state machine, and it will work just fine again. So yeah, that's how it works. Now it's working in different assemblies. You can work safely now. But just remember that this is for debugging. It can cause some performance issues, not as much, but it's not good to ship your game with this. I will leave the link on the description explaining on the Unity documentation page explaining about reflection in runtime, but it's also very useful to test. So yeah, that's it. That's it for this video. I'll upload this console to the GitHub page, so you can download from there with the scripts and also the package to import to your project. And yeah, that's it. That's it for this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye.